What is up, everybody? We are back here at King Film Sports for the final bracketology update here on the channel, March 15th. As tomorrow, we will have the official bracket reveal on the channel. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment here, as we will be having a lot of content about the bracket. My official predictions, some great upset picks, some good betting picks, some dark horses as well, all when it comes out. But first here, we're going to chronicle the changes that have happened over Conference Championship Week, because a lot of these bubble teams in these major conferences are done playing. We will go over the ongoing ramifications and debates with some of these games, and then I'll also be going through the entire bracket, giving my thoughts on all of Joe Lunardi's seeds at this point, with some of my insights here about what can change over this next day and a half with the semifinals and finals of the remaining conference tournaments. So here we started out with the bubble, and this is what Joe Lunardi had here throughout the day on Friday, and I'll kind of update it with what I think will happen here. So obviously you can see two SEC teams in the last four byes, Oklahoma and Arkansas. These two teams a couple weeks ago were battling it out, probably looking like they were going to be out at that point, but a few big wins for both of those teams, and they both ended up losing really close on Thursday and almost made the quarterfinals. Oklahoma barely losing to Kentucky. That's the second time that they've just come up short against that Wildcats team, so tough there. And then Arkansas barely got it done against South Carolina on Wednesday, and then barely lost to Ole Miss on Thursday there. But I do think that those teams would be in right now. Wouldn't shock me, though, if one of those two were in the last four in. Then you've got West Virginia, Vanderbilt, another SEC team. And then he's got SDSU, Xavier, Boise State, and then interesting that he's got North Carolina here. They obviously lose to Duke for the third time, come back from 24 points down, and then obviously the lane violation on the free throw there does them in as they try to force overtime. So they can't beat Duke without Cooper Flagg, and just a lot of their results really hollow in that ACC conference. That was very much down this year, but we will see there. Then Texas, how about the run that they went on in the SEC tournament? And if they could have gotten it done today against Tennessee in the quarterfinal round, I feel like they could have actually gotten a bid in the tournament, but as of that result, losing by double digits, I think that they are out just because of the way that they ended the SEC regular season there, but we will see. Then Indiana flamed out in the Big Ten tournament to Oregon on Thursday. That was a very disappointing result for them, considering that the tournament was played in Indianapolis, but we will see for them there. Also interesting, considering that Big Ten on the bubble just not looking very good, as Ohio State lost their first game against Iowa, so they're probably out, as you can see them in the next four out. And then you've got this Colorado State team. This is going to be one of the big movers for me. I think that this team is one of the hottest teams in the nation. They've won 9 straight right now. Nick Clifford looking like one of the best players in the nation, and they are playing Boise State in the Mountain West final there. Then you've got Dayton, a team that I just think is firmly out at this point. Very tough loss for them against St. Joe's. Then, as I mentioned, Ohio State lost to Iowa in the first round of the Big Ten tournament. I think that they are out at this point. And then you've got UC Irvine here. They will be playing UC San Diego in the Big West Conference Tournament final. And as brutal as it sounds, I think that the loser of that tournament will be out here. If it's UC Irvine, then definitely they're out here. As you look, they're probably the 5th or 6th team out at this point. But even if it's UC San Diego, that's going to be an interesting debate here. But I just do not think that their resume holds up against these other teams, because all of these other teams on the bubble have kind of been winning. And UC San Diego just didn't have the resume out of conference, and even had a couple losses in conference there. But it will be interesting to gauge that. And then you've got some other teams, Wake Forest and North Texas, that are firmly out as well. Then let's go to my bubble here. So I think that Oklahoma and Arkansas, as I mentioned, firmly in. West Virginia, very disappointing. They lost to Colorado, the 16 seed, didn't even make the quarterfinal in the Big 12 tournament. So I think that bumps them down from maybe the 8 or the 9 line down to maybe the 10 or 11, but I still think that they're in. They did have a few good wins in conference play in a very tough conference, Big 12, and then some great wins in the out of conference. So I think that that assures them the last four bye spot there. And then I will say that Colorado State gets its last four byes. Now, if it were based on current positioning, I think that they'd be probably the last team in, or maybe the first team out, but I do just think that this team is a wagon right now, 1-9 in a row, and I think they're going to go out and beat Boise tomorrow and get the automatic qualifying bid, as obviously if you win your conference and you're not one of the 16 seeds, then you will not play in the first four out in Dayton. So I think that that Rams team will win that game against Boise. We know that they went into Boise last Friday and won by double digits there. So if they lose that game, I probably think that they're out, as brutal as that sounds, just because they only have one quad win on the entire season, and that was that aforementioned win last Friday at Boise there. And really just the out of conference resume is not too good. They've really just been heating up as of late. So like New Mexico winning the Mountain West last year, I think that they probably have to win that game. Things are going to get hairy if they lose it, but we will see there. Then I've got SDSU in this last four in. I just think that they should be in at this point. Tough loss to Boise State, close in that quarterfinal game in the Mountain West, but I just think that the results were so good in the out of conference and pretty good in conference as well. Even though they're going down to the last four in, I think that they should be in the tournament. Then Vanderbilt, I'm bumping them down to the last four in. They lost in the first round of the SEC tournament there, and I just think that they were faltering down the stretch in SEC play. This is a conference that's getting 13 14 teams in, so I just think that this Commodores team has fallen beneath Oklahoma and Arkansas there just because of the recent results. And then I'm taking Boise State to get in this last 4-in spot. This is probably where they are right now. I think that they get a close loss here to this Colorado State team, maybe by 5 or 6 points in the Mountain West final here. And I think that it's going to be a very interesting debate. If they lose in close fashion to that Colorado State team, will they get into the tournament? I do not think that they'll get a last 4 bye spot, but I do potentially think that they could get into the last 4 in here, just considering the 2 other results that they had: a big win against SDSU team here who is on the bubble, and then a New Mexico team that is firmly in the tournament as well. Then you see Xavier. I'm not sure if they're going to be included. I wouldn't mind if a North Carolina or a Texas or an Indiana were above them here just because of how they finished. They had a lead against Marquette and then blew it there in the quarterfinal of the Big East, so really couldn't pad anything extra onto their resume there, and really just nothing special throughout conference play for them, so I wouldn't be angry either way. Then you've got these teams like Texas, Indiana, North Carolina, which are definitely debatable at this point. Also, I mentioned UCSD before. If they lose their conference championship, VCU, I think if they lose in either the A-10 semifinal or the A-10 final, I think that they will be out. I just think that the resumes of these other teams, like a Xavier, like a Texas, Indiana, North Carolina, or the SEC or Mountain West teams on the bubble, I just think that they are inferior at this point. So that's just where I am at in terms of that. And now we get into some of my thoughts on the bracket. Not going to be giving you guys my entire bracket prediction, but just some thoughts on seeding. So Auburn gets the close win against Ole Miss, and that puts them at the number 1 overall seed as they've been for a while here. It just seems that they're playing much worse than they were when they were just a buzzsaw through the SEC, but still, with that being said, I think they are the number 1 overall seed and are clinched at that position here, so they will get that regional in Atlanta. Then how about Marquette here? They blew a big lead to St. John's after having that big comeback against Xavier, and they were a 3 or 4 seed going into conference play, then had just a really tough go of it there, lost all 3 to St. John's this season, so down to the 8 line is brutal. Then you have Baylor here at the number 9 seed, kind of inconsistent in Big 12 play, so I guess that makes sense. Then BYU, shout out the Cougars. We've had a lot of BYU support for them in the comments, and they obviously did have that either 8 or 9 game win streak brought to an end by Houston, one of the best teams in the nation. Definitely a run to be proud of over the last month for this BYU team. Another win against a ferocious Iowa State team in the quarterfinals there. Then you've got Boise State. I have them winning against Xavier in the first 4, so that's why you see them at the 12 seed there. Then Purdue, I thought they were going to go on a run in the Big Ten tournament. They end up losing in tough fashion against Michigan in the quarterfinal round there after they barely even beat USC in the round before that. So very disappointing tournament for Purdue. That puts them at the 4 seed, maybe even the 5 if they get bumped down a little more. Then UCLA, very tough Big Ten tournament for them as they just get bounced in the quarterfinal round by 20 against Wisconsin there. I wouldn't be mad if they got knocked down to the 7 line as well. And then Drake, they've been firmly into this 11 seed for a while now after locking up the Missouri Valley Conference there, so congrats to them in their preparation. Then you got Texas Tech here. They lost to Arizona pretty close today. Thought that they could have gotten a 2 seed if they did win the Big 12 tournament, but they do lose to the Wildcats there, so I think that a 3 seed serves them well. Then you've got this Utah Valley team, and they're going to be playing against Grand Canyon in their conference championship game. They are the number 1 seed. Grand Canyon's the number 2 seed, but they will be an underdog in that matchup, so we will see who gets that spot there. I feel like Grand Canyon could definitely be a 12 or a 13 seed, and we know that they were very feisty in the tournament last year, so watch out for that. Or if Utah Valley can lock up the conference there, that should be interesting there on Saturday. Then Missouri, how about them down to the 7 line? They were at a 4 or a 5 seed a couple weeks ago. Acquitted themselves fine in the SEC tournament, lost to Florida in that matchup, but they did win their first game, obviously. So I wouldn't be mad if they were around a 6 seed, but definitely a tough finish of the season in March for this Missouri team. And then West Virginia, as we mentioned, kind of faltered down the stretch as well, so they are at the 10 line. And then how about the St. John's team at a number 2 seed? I definitely think they get at least a number 2 seed if they lock up the Big East title against Creighton. We know that they will have a sizable home court advantage in that one. They are the favorites there, so that's going to be very interesting for that St. John's team there. Playing great at the right time, and they only have 4 losses on the entire season, so a great resume for the Johnnies there. Then we get to the East Regional, and Duke here having some trouble in the ACC tournament after just steamrolling this conference the entire season there. We will continue to monitor Cooper Flag's injury there, but for now, they will be playing Louisville in the ACC championship. And even if they lose that game without Cooper Flag, I think they are definitely the number 1 seed in this Eastern Regional here. Then at the 8th seed, you've got UConn. I said in the Big East predictions video, if UConn could maybe get to the final there or win the Big East tournament, they could get to the 7 line, but losing there in the semifinals to Creighton, I think that they are definitely in an 8-9 game. Could definitely be dangerous going for their three-peat here for the 1 seed that they could potentially face in the second round, but we will see there. Then you've got Mississippi State, tough end to the SEC tournament for them there as they lose once again to Missouri. So I think that they are definitely at an 8 or a 9 seed there. Then you've got Michigan at the 5 seed. I'd seen them as low as a 6 last week, but then a good win for them against Purdue today. If they can beat Maryland and then maybe beat Michigan State or Wisco in the Big Ten tournament final, I think that they could definitely be in line for an upgrade to a 4 seed there, but we will see. Then you got Iowa State on the 4 line, a tough end to the season for them as they end up losing to BYU twice in the last couple of weeks there. And they were looking like they were going to push for a 2 or the 3 seed at this point if they could upset Houston, but they didn't even get to that point in the Big 12 tournament there. Then you've got this Louisville team. They are a high riser here as you've got Clemson on the 5 line, and Louisville beat this Clemson team twice. If they could avenge that conference loss to Duke, then they could definitely be in line for a 5 seed there if they can get that upset win, but we will see. And then you've got that Vanderbilt team, as we mentioned, on the bubble. And then Maryland, how about them on the 3 line here? This is probably their high point of the entire season. Maybe they could press for a number 2 seed if they can get this win against Michigan in the Big Ten semifinals and then potentially win the entire conference tournament, but we will see there. Then at the 7 line here, congrats to Gonzaga. They won the WCC tournament final in a bit of a dogfight against St. Mary's, but that should suit them well. It was a very frustrating season at some points, but they do win the conference tournament and get out of that 8-9 matchup, I think, there. And then you got them playing against a feisty Arkansas team. And then Tennessee here at the number 2 line, and I know that a lot of people are saying, oh, it's either Alabama or Florida for that final number 1 seed. No, I think that if this Tennessee team beats Auburn, which definitely a tough task, but there are only 3-point underdogs in that game, and then they beat the Alabama-Florida winner, I am willing to say that this Tennessee team should get that final number 1 seed. Let me know what you guys think about that in the comments down below, but that's going to be a tough task for them, so we'll see if they're up for it. Then we get to this next regional here, the Midwest. Houston, firmly the number 1 seed, regardless of what happens against Arizona in the Big 12 tournament final. But given what happened to them last year in the Big 12 tournament final, losing by 30 to Iowa State, I definitely think that they will want to win that one. So we will see there. Then you've got Memphis versus UGA in the 8-9 matchup. I think that if Memphis wins the American and some other results go their way, I think that they could get up to perhaps the 7 line, but we will see. Georgia, I think, is firmly in the 8-9 position. Good end of the season for them there other than the SEC tournament. Then you've got Clemson at the 5 line, as I've mentioned. I think this serves them well. Maybe they get knocked back to the 6 if, say, Louisville passes them, if Louisville beats Duke in the ACC tournament final, because Louisville did sweep Clemson in the season series here in the regular season and then the ACC tournament semifinal, but we will see there. Then you've got McNeese, a feisty 12 seed who won the Southland Conference tournament there. I definitely think that the 5 seed that they play in the first round is going to be on upset watch. They are definitely a dark horse to see in the tournament. Then you've got this Texas A&M team, very disappointing in the SEC tournament as they get knocked off by their rivals, Texas Longhorns there. So I think that they are definitely on the 4 line after it looked like they could be on the 2 line when they beat Auburn at home last Tuesday. And then you've got Yale here. They haven't even played yet in the Ivy League tournament, so we'll see who wins that. Then you've got Ole Miss here at the 6 line. I don't know how I feel about this. I mean, yes, they did push Auburn to the wire here, but I'm not sure if they're worthy of a 6 seed. Wouldn't be surprised if we see them at the 7. It really just comes down to the committee's thoughts on the SEC at large. And then you have VCU here. Once again, if they lose in the semifinal or the final of the A-10 tournament, there's no guarantee that they make the tournament, and I think that they will most likely miss it. And then you've got Wisconsin at the number 3 seed here. Like I said about Maryland, I think if Wisco beats Michigan State and then wins the Big Ten tournament final, they will be a number 2 seed there, but I think that they are firmly at a number 3 seed at this point. And then you've got Kansas at the number 7 line after they lost in the Big 12 quarterfinals here. It will be interesting to see what they come up with in the big dance. We obviously know the pedigree with Bill Self and a lot of the veterans on that team. They just haven't been able to get the most out of it for a lot of this season. And then you've got Utah State sitting firmly there at the 10 line. Tough loss for them against the wagon Colorado State team, but I think that they should be firmly in the tournament there. And then you've got Alabama as the number 2 seed. They play Florida, and I think that game is for all intents and purposes for that last number 1 seed, unless Tennessee obviously wins the SEC tournament, as I've chronicled there. So that brings us to the final quadrant here, the West, where we have Florida at the number 1 seed. And I think that if they lose lose to Alabama, as I just mentioned there, they will not be getting this final number 1 seed there. Other people will happen to think that Florida is getting this number 1 seed anyway, but I just don't happen to agree with them there. Then Creighton versus New Mexico here. Creighton, I think, will get to the number 7 line if they can upset St. John's in the Big East tournament final, but we will see there. Then the New Mexico Lobos on the 9 line. Wouldn't surprise me if they were on the 10 here, but I think most likely they are in an 8-9 matchup. Then you've got Oregon at the 5 seed. I think this serves them well here after a tough loss against Michigan State. And then UC San Diego. I think that the winner of them and UC Irvine will be a very feisty 12 seed there in the first round, and the loser will be very bitter in the NIT. Then we get to the 4 seed Arizona. Maybe if they beat Houston, they can get to the number 3 line. They've just been very inconsistent all year long here, but we know that they do have the talent to go on a big run in March. So let's see if they can upset that Houston team there. That should be a great game. Then you've got Lipscomb at the 13 line after winning the A-Sun. And then at the 6 line, very disappointing, Illinois. They got boat raced today by the Maryland Terrapins. Wouldn't be surprised if they got knocked down to the 7 line because they just lost that game by 30 or 40 points there. Then you've got them facing San Diego State out of the first 4. And then you've got Kentucky here at the 3 line. Not sure if they will maintain the seeding here. Maybe they get knocked down to a 4 because they got crushed by Alabama, I believe, for the 3rd time this season. So I'm not sure if they deserve a 3 seed there, but we'll see about the worthy competitors when it comes down to it. And then you've got St. Mary's, who gets pushed down to a 7 seed. I was seeing some things that were saying that they could be a number 5 seed for the 4th straight year if they did win the WCC tournament final, but they did end up losing that one there. Just a tough offensive display against Gonzaga. So I think that they could be on the 7 line, but wouldn't surprise me to see them at the 6. And then you've got Oklahoma out of the SEC at the number 10. And then you've got this Michigan State team at the number 2 spot. And I think that some people are saying that this Spartans team could rise to a number 1 seed. Some people are also saying that about St. John's. I think that's going a little too far here. Yes, this Spartans team is very good, but even if they win the Big Ten, I am of the camp that they should definitely still be a 2 seed. But let me know in the comments what you guys think about that there. So with all that being said, let me know what you guys think about the bubble and about all of the seeding implications here for March Madness. As always, be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys all in the next one.